Life Management Science Labs would like to acknowledge that we live and produce this podcast on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. We'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands of our listeners and our international colleagues. We'd like to thank and pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Hi everyone, and welcome to Room by Room, the Home Organisation Science Insights podcast, produced by LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. We are champions of life management science, providing structured insights informed by science and inspired by practice on key aspects of conscious living. Each week we bring you scientific and practical insights on each element, with expert knowledge from professionals in the field. I'm your host, Gabriella Joustra, coming to you from Naarm, Melbourne, Australia. Let's get started. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. Today we're going to be talking about bathroom ergonomics with a kitchen and bathroom designer. But before we get going, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi Gabriella, my name's Patricia La Torre. I'm from Outside Building Elements and interior design specialising in kitchens and bathrooms.
Amazing. So we're going to start off with a little segment we like to call Have You Met Patricia?
Okay.
What's your favourite book?
Ooh, I've got a few, but okay, my outstanding one is Perfume. And I think he was a German writer, Patrick Suskind. It was written quite some years ago. So it's a story about a murderer.
I think I watched the movie.
Yes, I saw the movie too. The book was just wonderful. It takes you away. Just the images that it actually creates in your head. So it was a wonderful book to read. Yeah.
Sounds interesting. I think it'd be interesting trying to imagine the smells, because I guess it's about a perfumer. They'd have smells involved.
Yeah. And the character was amazing from the moment that he was born. You could understand how his incredibly developed sense of smell all happened. It was quite confronting, I think, the beginning of the book and the beginning of the film. And then you can understand how he travels through life and his sense of smell is so heightened. It drives him in everything that he does. It was amazing. Yeah.
Is there a movie you've seen recently?
Okay, yes. I saw what everybody's seeing is, what was it? Where the Crawdads Sing.
I've heard of it. I haven't watched it though.
Yeah, I think I need to read the book. I'm not going to spoil it for you.
Okay. Is there a podcast you're listening to at the moment?
Yes, I am. I was actually looking for a podcast. I'm looking at rediscovering the psychology of colour and just going into it a bit. And then I found one, and it's actually an Australian architect, and her name is Amelia Lee, and it's Undercover Architect. But she had a speaker who specialised in colour. It was really interesting.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. And I think you want to talk about the psychology of colour later. So
yeah, I wouldn't mind if we had the time.
Yeah. So I won't ask too much more about that now.
Sure.
We'll save it for later.
Okay.
Is there a role model that you look up to?
Ita Buttrose.
Aha. Why's that?
I think just her journey in life. She's kind of, what you see is what you get. She's quite frank, and everything that she's gone through in life and, gotten to where she is, kind of leading the ABC, which is interesting. But I think all of her experiences in the past, she's a formidable lady, I think. So I've always been quite interested in her, yeah.
So we do have an international audience. Do you want to explain who she is?
Oh, Ita Buttrose. Oh, she would be... Now, she was a person who actually started Cosmopolitan. I don't know if anyone recalls Cosmopolitan in Australia. It was a women's magazine. It was a magazine just for women, and it actually had centrefold pages, which was quite confronting and outrageous at the time. And most of the media thought this will never work, and it did. So she focused on magazines that promoted women and their interests and everything to do with being a female in our society, really.
I never read them myself, but it's nice to have media that's just for women, I guess.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of media is sort of framed for everyone, but
Sure.
you know.
Yeah. Well, during the times, it was quite different. So it was really magazines thought of by males for women, whereas here you had a female who stepped in and said, you know, put it all upside down really and said, no, I think that we can do this. And to have a centrefold, and the centrefolds were quite, there were no clothes, males. And that was something really strange at the time. It was quite confronting. We never had anything like that. So I find, you know, what she did was pretty amazing. And I actually saw a documentary on her not long ago.
Ah, that'd be good to watch.
And that was really interesting too.
I have to put that on my to-watch list.
Yeah.
Yeah. And have you completed a course that you really enjoyed?
Oh, not lately. What I've done lately is actually engaged a colleague who I've always admired kind of her work and what she does, and I need to brush up. I like to brush up, I should say, on CAD. So CAD is computer automated design. So just to brush up on that, and also just to step out of the business that I have and have more of an objective view of it, kind of analysing it. So no, I haven't done a course, but I've engaged someone to kind of challenge me on various things in my work. Yeah.
So it's a self-directed course in some ways.
Yeah, kind of. I designed it myself. No, it's, you know, sometimes I think I haven't had anything that I've come across that I'm kind of really engaged in, but that might be because of my COVID mind. So having someone in my profession who kind of challenges me has been something that I thought I'd really like that to re-engage with all of that. Yeah.
I think it's great to have colleagues and things that you can, look to help you with and challenge you. I think, and it's always good to be evolving within your own work.
Yeah, in the sessions that I have, I must say I've sat there and gone, really? And been shocked, thinking, I didn't know that, I didn't realise that. And so that's been really good. Yeah, definitely.
So how do you define home organisation?
Wow. Okay. I had to think about this in context of what your focus is, which is trying to promote the well-being of the everyday individual within their home.
Yes.
So as a designer, home organisation for me would mean the layout of an interior. And as someone who specialises in bathrooms and kitchens, it's the layout of those interiors, of those spaces, and just ensuring that they work well and they feel good. And it's about the person, the people who live in the home. So it's really about feeling good in those spaces. And that can be very individual. But we do have guidelines on what we need in the spaces and the clearances we need, the dimensions that we require. So there's a certain science that we have to follow in order to make sure that interior environment feels good.
And what do people get wrong with home organisation?
Oh, I think sometimes trying to squeeze so much into a space, that's one. not being aware of that it's far more, I don't want to use the word complicated, I don't want to scare people, but it does require more consideration, more planning. And so you need to research that. So I suppose one is squeezing too much in. The second is the need for research. And by research, I don't mean going on Pinterest or Instagram, because they're just images. And so what you might be attracted to are simple patterns and colours and the look of something. Whereas it goes beyond that. It's the locations of certain items within those spaces, and the dimensions or the clearances that you've allowed, so that if you stand up, you don't smash into a shower panel, that everything works well for you. Yeah.
So what guidelines do you have to follow when you're designing a bathroom, for example?
Look, there are guidelines that we have in the industry. So in terms of bathroom design, there are certain dimensions that we have to follow. There are clearances, so we call them clearances. So, for example, a toilet suite. A toilet suite, if you have a wall on one side and let's say a vanity on the other, the minimum clearance is 780 millimetres. The recommended clearance is 900. So that's just an example of some of the things that we need to consider. And when we're designing, we try and keep within those maximums and minimums. Having said that, for example, in the example that I've just given, I wouldn't necessarily say between a wall and a vanity, for me, 780 is a bit tight, although that's a minimum. So I think it's just feels good if you have a little bit more space. So heading towards 800 is good. So it's the practicalities of all of that. And the guidelines, there are Australian standards that we have to consider. There are guidelines in terms of clearances, dimensions, where things can go, should go, how they are placed in the area that they are. So there's quite a few layers that we have to take into account.
Yeah, sounds like there's, you need to really do a lot of research really, make a list or have a checklist of things that you need to know before you can really start designing it.
And take your time. Mm-hmm. It's not just about, I'm going to do a bathroom. I want a bathroom now. I need to rip everything out, and then I'm just going to put everything that I want in there. No, it doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. There's actually quite a lot of thought that goes into it and a lot of planning. So, for example, myself, once the client has given the go-ahead, there's a lot of time invested in doing the design for that space, which includes me going out and, of course, doing a measure-up of all the space. And I take images to take all the details in, and I'm trying to work out what I can and can't do. What's in the walls? What are the walls composed of? Is it a stud wall? Is it a brick wall? I have to know that. I have to be up with all of that. Sometimes it's guesswork, because for some reason or another, it's not until we've taken off the plasterwork. I think that it's built in a certain way because my understanding of building regulations during that time, it would be built this way. Lo and behold, the plaster comes off and I think, oh my God, the builder decided to turn left instead of right. Why did they do that? So there's always the surprise. But these are all the things that we need to take into account. So when I get back into the office and I sit down to actually do the design, doing the plans, and we do the elevations, Even for someone like myself who has had years of experience with it, I can honestly say it takes me a long time to do a plan, a preliminary plan that I think, yeah, I'm happy with that. Would I feel comfortable in this? Can I move around in this without hitting my arm or smashing my head or whatever? Does it feel good? Does it look good? Yes, I think it does. And then I start on the details of all the items in there, the selection and so on and so forth.
So definitely a lot of different moving parts, I guess.
A lot of elements.
So you mentioned comfort's very important, comfort within this space, but what about safety and everyday use?
Absolutely. Well, a bathroom, wet area, the likelihood of slipping in that bathroom is very high. That's when we have accidents within the home. The bathroom's the place where it usually happens. So that is really important. So accidents are things to take into account is, of course, for example, your tiles. If you're thinking of a tile going into a shower, that shower and the tiles have to be considered. So the tiles need to have a certain rating for slip resistance, so more grip.
I didn't know that there were ratings.
There are, yes, yeah. So taking that into account, so when you go and do a tile selection, I'm sure the shiny tile looks lovely, but is it something for a bathroom floor in a wet area? I don't think so. So you need to ask the question, you need to investigate that. So that's just one example.
And what about for everyday use? So I guess things should be designed so that if you're using this area all the time, but this other area less often, you need to have it designed in a specific way?
So in a bathroom?
In a bathroom?
Yeah.
Or I guess you use all of the bathroom every day.
Yeah, bathroom is the go-to place. So if you think of how often do you go to your bathroom, how often do you, first thing in the morning, you go to the bathroom. Last thing at night, you go to the bathroom. And then in between that, many people visit for various reasons throughout the day. And you spend quite a bit of time there preparing. Now, myself, I like going into my bathroom to do all the things that I need and want to do. And there's no item or element in that bathroom, if I think about it, that I don't use through the day. In the ensuite, for example, I have a spa bath. Now, that I don't use all the time. I use it a lot, but not all the time. So most of your bathrooms are kind of go-to places that you're always using all the elements in there quite often.
So how does the bathroom design affect the rest of the household?
Oh, look, there's a few things in there. So, for example, you have to think about your location. So bathroom design, you've got a space and you've got all the items that you have in there, but you may not be able to fit everything in there. So, for example, rather than having a toilet suite in there, can you have a powder room somewhere? It needs to be located somewhere where it's well considered. So you wouldn't put a bathroom or a powder room, for example, both items that you use quite a bit, next to a kitchen. Your bathroom would usually be located near a bedroom or the bedrooms, depending on how many bathrooms you have. And the layout and accessibility of a bathroom means you go in, it's not far away when you need to go to the bathroom, get prepared for the morning, have your shower and so on and so forth, and that you don't have to travel a long distance to get to, your bedroom, whereas usually where you dress and everything else. So it really needs to be considered. Some people are lucky enough to have an ensuite, so that makes life a little bit easier. So it does affect how the household how everything flows in the household. And of course, when you've got visitors, it affects all of that. Bathrooms need to be private spaces, so they will be noisy spaces. Whether you're having a shower or, for example, if you have a toilet suite in there, you know, there are things that need to be taken into account. So you don't want them to be located somewhere where they don't have as much privacy. So they're just some of the things that you need to think of.
It does remind me of my dad's house.
Yeah.
We were staying there, and his bathroom was on the other side of the house next to the kitchen.
Oh, yes.
And so in the middle of the night, he leaves the light on so that we can find our way there, because it's so far away.
Yes.
But you're like trying not to trip because it's really dark.
Yeah, exactly. You have to travel all the way there. And it's kind of like, really?
So that was very annoying, actually.
Yes, yeah. And it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good, especially if you have to wake up during the evening or during the night and you have to travel somewhere and you can have an accident on the way there, you know, trip over something or whatever else. And it's just all about making life a little bit easier and comfortable.
And I guess listening to people isn't so nice when you're eating.
No, it was really funny. Where I live, I purchased the place from a plan. So it's a 3-level apartment, and I really wasn't allowed to negotiate to change everything. I had to go with what was in there. But one thing I did manage to negotiate was on the first level, they had a powder room right next to the kitchen. And I thought, really? Oh no, I can't. Oh no, this is so wrong. And in addition to that, I mean, you know, we had a powder room upstairs and I have a powder room downstairs. Why do I have 3 powder rooms in this place? So yeah, I managed to negotiate of getting rid of that straight away. It wouldn't have been a feel-good sort of place. So yeah.
It's funny that you, as a bathroom designer, didn't get that much choice.
No, well, see, when you're purchasing from plan, the likelihood of having that choice is very limited. So I had to go with what was there. But I managed to negotiate here and there, and that was good. Yeah.
So how does... So I imagine that people with children or the elderly or people with disabilities have different needs.
Yes.
If you had a client, how would you change the layout, I guess?
Oh, there are so many variables, so many possibilities. So it really depends on the space.
Okay.
So one is the space. So when I meet a client, I try and really focus on getting to know them, getting to know the household. Of course, I look at the space and we talk about their wish list. Now, their wish list really involves what it is that they really need, what it is that they want, and what it is that they kind of wish for. What else can I have? What else can I... These are some of the things that I really love. Can I have these in there? Now, if I can achieve all that, that's great. But there's sometimes that I can't because it's physically not possible. So it needs to meet the needs of that person, of that household. So if the person has a disability, there are guidelines in terms of bathroom or interior design for those spaces, and we have to follow those guidelines to suit a person with a disability. If they have a wheelchair, if they're in a wheelchair, and to ensure that it's user-friendly. And that applies to everybody. So there are, as I said before, we have guidelines. We have industry standards that we have to follow. So we have formulas that we have to follow. And they meet the needs of whatever the composition, whatever the number of people, composition of people who live within that household.
Can you give an example?
Oh, geez. I've been doing so many bathroom designs lately. We're inundated with it. Okay, I have a person who I just met recently who's engaged me to do an interior design of their wet area, their bathroom. The person, as time goes on, has had a couple of accidents and is at a certain age where within the next 10 years there might be mobility issues. So I have to take that into account. Now, the wish list that they have is I think, doable. Been working on it. And I've spent quite a bit of time really making sure that the design, the layout is in such a way that they can move quite freely from one space to another. So, for example, rather than a shower cubicle, which is usually wall, and then wall, it might be a corner, and then you have 2 glass panels. And one of those panels is, for example, an entry into the shower. That's okay. They're kind of leaving the market, mainly because just having a simple walk-in shower is easier, and just to reduce the amount of cleaning and everything else. So if you can have a walk-in shower with no door, terrific. So this is the sort of thing that I've had to incorporate into this person's space. But I need to think of it in terms of what if the mobility is affected even more so in the next few years? What if she has to go in with a wheelchair or so forth? So I have to take that into account. Do I have the spaces to allow for that? If I'm putting in a grab rail, which I wouldn't put in now because that's not necessary, and the client wouldn't want that, I'll have to design ahead and also think of what's happening behind those tiles, the timber structure behind those tiles. So, for example, later on, if I'm wanting to put in a grab rail, I'll have to design in advance so that the timber structure can easily accommodate supporting a grab rail, because you can't just drill it into tiles. It's not going to hold the weight and everything. So there's some of the considerations. There's a bath that they're wanting in this space. I have to make sure that that bath is accessible for them. How do you climb into that bath? So do we need something that is not as high, not as deep? For example, a vanity unit and the basin within the vanity unit, is it integrated? Does it sit on top? And what do we have underneath? Do we have drawers? Can we accommodate drawers? And can the drawers accommodate the plumbing? So that's nice, easy storage, more accessible storage, and more comfortable for the person. So I have to think of what would happen as time goes on. What can I bring in here?
Do you think that all bathrooms should be optimised for everyone?
Well, that's really ergonomics. So it's really about user-friendly. So just like we're sitting at a desk and we may be looking at a computer and we need that computer at a certain height, we need our seat or our chair to work in a certain height for it to move forward or backwards and so forth, and we need the desk to work at a certain height. And recently, I think through everything, through lockdowns and everything, we've worked out that sitting at a desk is not really conducive to the body. So we've taken it a step further where you have those desks, press a button, goes up, so you can stand at your desk and so on and so forth. So there's a certain formula to look after your body. It's similar in a bathroom. You have ergonomics in terms of ease of use it's user-friendly, which doesn't cause any pain or discomfort to the body, or tries to reduce that as much as possible. And there's also the sequence of use. So try and design so that you use a space, move out of that space, or that whatever that may be. It might be you're in a shower recess. Once you move out of the shower recess, you'll need a towel rail nearby. You don't want to be walking to the other side of the bathroom to get your towels. Will it be a heated towel rail nearby? You have to take that into account in terms of your electric zones in a wet area. That has to be taken into account. And as you move out there, you take your towel, use your towel. Can you stretch your arms out without smashing into something? So they're kind of basic things. Your storage is about ease of use. So you're not opening up a cabinet and going hunting down the back to something that was there 12 years ago and thinking, oh my God, I never realised that was there. So, having a well-considered design with all the elements in the bathroom makes a huge difference. And think of your bathroom in terms of it's not an inexpensive area to renovate. It is one of our most expensive areas to renovate. So your kitchen, your bathroom are the most expensive areas because you have to think of all the structural things that happen in there. You have to think of all the items that go in there. And they're, hopefully they're not there for 2 or 3 years, because you're not going to do it and then think, oh, I don't like this, I'll just rip it out. No, that doesn't work. And we are beyond all of that now. We really need to give time, effort and thought into how we design and plan things. Because really, if you're looking at a bathroom design, renovations or whatever, you're talking about quite a few $1,000s.
Wow.
That's an investment. You're looking at, I'm not even going to say the amounts because presently they're all being affected by, materials being available and so on and so forth. But, it's not as if I go into a bedroom and just put in soft furnishings like, your curtains and your bedspreads and things like that. They're pieces that are stay within the area. I cannot move the vanity. I cannot move the toilet suite once it's in there. So it really needs to be well considered and comfortable.
So, you need to, I guess, put the time and effort into planning a bathroom and...
Absolutely.
Yeah, and designing it so that it actually functions well. Whereas if I get my bedroom wrong...
you can play around with that. You can move things around.
Yeah.
This is just to I was thinking of it the other day. It's, everything has a science to it. Mm-hmm. When we're cooking, if we want to be successful in baking a sponge cake or a souffle, they're pretty difficult or challenging items to cook, talking from experience. Now, the likelihood of success for me is better if I actually follow the recipe, the ingredients, and the measurements, whether it is a cup or a spoon or a teaspoon or whatever it may be, and the process. So interior design in terms of bathrooms is not dissimilar to that. If you think about the steps that you have to take and the outcome that you're wanting to achieve. So there is a formula, there is a science to it, and that's really important to follow. It's in your best interests.
Do you think that hiring a bathroom designer such as yourself is imperative to getting the bathroom right, or do you think that someone with enough research can do it themselves?
Okay. I'm going to blow my own trumpet and say I would say getting or engaging someone who has had the experience and the knowledge is in your best interest. It's actually, you're looking at their expertise and you're trying to get to engage them to do all of that. It takes a lot of time to research and put it all together. It doesn't mean it can't be done, but if you feel confident that you can do that, that's great. But having said that, I'll just share something. Can I share something in my own experience?
Yes.
Okay. This is my second life in terms of work, in terms of my profession. I used to be a social worker many years ago, loved what I did. I was more of a therapist, specialised in a certain field, did it for 20 years, time to leave. Enjoyed every moment of it, still have contacts in that industry. I did a double major, a second degree, and so I was doing the history of art and architecture, which I absolutely loved, and I was doing sociology, psychology, philosophy. So I had to make a decision which way, what was I going to specialise in and what was I going to do with my life? So I decided on social work and left the history of art and architecture. But during all that time, got married, had a family, so on and so forth. Like we always used to do, with my ex-husband and I, we always used to do renovations. So I used to do bathrooms and kitchens and all of that. And I thought I was pretty crash hot at it. I was pretty good. People used to come and go, "Oh, I love this space. This is great." Then when I decided to actually do the career change, I thought, just like with my previous career, I had a lot of training. It was a profession. And I, had a university degree, so on and so forth. I had a lot of practice. And it was through all that I suppose I built that profession. So I had the same attitude in terms of when I decided, what am I going to do with my life now? Oh, yes, I remember. I used to love art and the history of architecture and stuff, and I'm doing renovations. Well, maybe I should go into interior design. So I actually did the course. I did the course in several places. So I did the interior design course and I had to do it part-time at night because I had a very young family to look after and children to raise and focus on. And I had to work part-time to feed everybody. So all of that sort of everyday life sort of stuff. But I did so I did interior design, but I picked up on other courses as well. And I actually engaged people in terms of people who specialised in the industry, and I would pay them to teach me. So when I couldn't go to the course at night, I would do that. Anyway, having said all that and gone through all that, it was amazing what I learned. I thought, oh my God, I know nothing about. I have just been kind of, I was just lucky. But, look, and that opened my eyes to so much. And I thought, wow, there's all this theory I didn't realise. There are all the principles of interior design and so forth. I didn't realise there was all that to consider. And that has actually taught me so much in life as well as in my profession. Yeah.
Yeah, I find it's so interesting how much I don't know.
Yeah.
And once you start learning something, you actually suddenly realise how much you don't know.
Yes. But do we need to know everything?
I don't think we need to know everything.
Do I need to know absolutely everything in my life? No, I don't. So I'm quite happy to engage somebody and say, oh, look, we get along and you're the whiz person in this. That's great. I respect that. This is wonderful. And, with all my clients, we work together. It's not as if that you take away from that client and say, I'll make all the decisions for you because I know what you want and need. You work hand in hand with that person. So it's a very consultative process and making sure that they're happy with everything. In fact, making sure that they're really excited with the whole design. And then the installation and everything. So it's actually a good fun experience, as much as many people will be going, oh my God, renovation, good fun. No, but it can be good.
I guess if you have someone who knows what they're doing, it takes out a lot of that stress.
Yeah. And I think also times have changed and times will always change day by day, week by week, whatever. We've just gone through everything that we have. And I think for myself, I've realised I don't have to hurry and do everything. It's physically not possible, and I'm not really interested. There are other things in life that I want to enjoy as well. And I think most of the people that I come across have the same thoughts. And they're not in a hurry. They're not saying, I'm going to rip out my bathroom now and I want it done by Christmas. We're no longer operating that way, which is wonderful. It's more so, no, I really want to ensure that the design and the process ticks all the boxes, and then we'll go into the installation. So people are kind of sitting back and maybe being more in the present rather than looking at all these things around them, what the neighbours are doing or what's happening on TV and how to flip this and flap that and I don't know what. But really kind of focusing on it and thinking, no, this is what I would like. And I think we're also moving away from our homes just being an investment for resale. Our homes, I think, we're moving more into, because it's quite expensive and everything else that's happening, is kind of like, this is my go-to place and I'm going to have this for quite a while. I don't want to move anywhere else because that'll be quite expensive. It's in my best interest that I stay where I am. Therefore, I will invest and I'll make it my comfort place. It'll be about me or us and we'll enjoy it.
Yeah, I was having this discussion with my mum, who she's renovating her house at the moment.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, I had the real estate agent come around and they said if I did this, it would not increase the value of my house. No. And I was like, but do you want it? You're going to be here for 10 years. Just do it if that's what you want.
I think I'm going through that experience. I'm actually going to put my house on the market in the next few months, mainly because it's too big. There's only two of us. We've got 5 kids, all adults, and they've all enjoyed the place tremendously, but it's Hotel La Torre is now closing down and we're going to a smaller place. And I've had the same experience with advice saying paint it all white. And I said I'd rather slash my wrists. So it's what suits you.
Yeah.
And I think we're being dictated to quite a bit. With Instagram and so forth, it's a go-to place to have a look at what's happening out there and what are the colours and textures and so forth and everything. But we don't have to have what everybody else has. We don't have to do that. And I think we're slowly realising we are individuals, not everybody's the same. And if you want to do it in that way, that's great. That's wonderful. But if you want to do it this way, that's just as fantastic. And it's your environment. So we're focusing on feel good. This is the place you live. This is your comfort zone. These are the places, your home is where you grow and it can be fun and you can share it with other people in so many different ways.
Yeah, lovely thought. Just the house is for you and for your family.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like when I meet clients, I really try to put myself in their shoes. And I say to people, I'm coming into your private space, your personal space. I have to respect that. And it's not about the designer. It's not about me. I will achieve the best that I can for you to meet your needs, but also what you're attracted to. I need to kind of see through your eyes what you're attracted to and respect that. Because at the end of the day, when it's all done, I haven't spent any money. It's not my money. And I'm not spending $10 or $50. I'm spending a few thousand, maybe 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever, thousand of someone's money. And so it's respecting that, acknowledging that, respecting that. And it is about the individual, always about the individual and the people that make up the household.
Sort of moving back to the ergonomics,
Yeah.
What are some common mistakes people make?
Oh, like I said before, trying to squash everything in. Trying to put so much into one space, and then it becomes really uncomfortable, or it becomes difficult to look after. So, for example, a freestanding bath. Gorgeous, lovely pieces. Do you have the space for it? And I've seen images lately of, for example, 3 walls, a standalone bath, freestanding bath, and the sides of that bath are maybe touching the wall or only a couple of millimetres out. And I think, oh my God, how are they going to clean that? So you have to take into account that you need a certain amount of space on either side of that bath. So the minimum would be 200 millimetres. That's just one example of something that someone absolutely loves, because I come across this conversation quite a lot, and it's a must-have. But where are we going to put it? How are we going to put it? And if I put that in, I just want you to understand what it means, so that once it's all gone in a year or two, when you can't clean the space around it and it's not feeling good, you're not going to be cursing me. That's really important. And also thinking of, like we said before, it's about user-friendly. So it's about items being accessible, comfortable, and also the sequence of use. So you move from one space to another and you take storage into account in ways that maybe you haven't considered before. There's quite a number of alternatives. So, for example, you may not have too much storage, but it might be wise to have a mirror cabinet in. But you have to take into account that if I bend down over the vanity unit to wash my face, I don't want to be knocked out by the mirror cabinet. It's not a good thing. So you have to take that. You need certain clearances. A solution may be that we cut into the wall, we create a recessed mirror cabinet. So there are solutions there. And these are just practicalities of ergonomics and how we move in a space and how we want to make sure that we're safe and we don't do ourselves harm. So even in the height of a vanity unit, used to be about 850 quite a few years ago, 850 millimetres. Now they're recommending round about the 900 mark, not more than that. So I kind of think 880, 900, because the Australian population or the general population is taller. So you take that into account. So it's about how your arms move, how you bend down, and taking all of that into account. So when you bend down, if you're in a certain position, it can do harm to your back. When you put your hands in the basin and bring the water up to you, usually the water is dribbling down your arms, and there's certain kind of movements that cause more or less mess, pain, so on and so forth. And so there's a reason for the heights and everything else, and they're industry standards, industry recommendations. So it's important to follow those. Again, it's the science of a space, and we're human beings.
So what happens if you've got two people who are very different sizes? Yeah. So my parents, my mum's almost 5 foot and my dad's 6 foot.
Yeah.
So we always had these issues with like kitchen cupboards where my mum couldn't reach anything, but my
That's
dad
right.
was smacking his head.
Yeah, it's really difficult, and I come across that quite often. It's not going to suit everybody. Mm-hmm. So I have quite a number of designs that people are very tall, and they say, we would like the height of this to be increased to such and such. My response to that is, that's fine if that's comfortable for you, but I'm just letting you know the industry standard is this much. Therefore, someone else who's coming into this bathroom, and there may not be someone else for quite a while, or there could be, someone else is not going to be able to move well in this bathroom. So would you like us to proceed at what you prefer, or would you like to negotiate and compromise? So it's really explaining it's not going to suit everybody. It's not going to suit people who are, shorter and the person who's much taller. Mm-hmm. But in terms of, if you're at a bench top and you're working on that all the time, for example, in the kitchen, that's going to cause, if that is too high or too low, it's going to cause pain and discomfort. So all of that needs to be taken into account. And we can't, sometimes in those circumstances, we can't fulfill everything. What we can do, for example, with the cabinet that's overhead is raise the cabinet, but it's not going to be accessible for the person who's shorter. Therefore, you might have a kicker. Mm-hmm. A kicker is the lower part of a cabinet. So you might have drawers, you might have a door, and underneath that, where it hits the ground, there's kind of like, usually it can be 80 mils, 120 mil high. There is actually a system where you can pull it out and it becomes a platform that you can step on.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, so there's heaps of stuff out there.
I want that in my kitchen.
I know. I wouldn't mind it either to get to my overheads. So there are systems out there. There are things that you can bring, you may be able to bring, more so in a kitchen you can do that rather than a bathroom. But if you can, there's no rules saying you can't, as long as it meets all the ergonomic and all the standards that we need to tick.
Gosh, that's changed my whole
perspective.
I wouldn't need to have a stepladder in my kitchen.
Yeah, well, I think there are actual systems where it incorporates a stepladder that folds into kind of like a box or a drawer. It's a matter of whether they're available in Australia. So, but yeah, there's amazing cabinetry systems.
What are some other important things that you should have in your bathroom?
Ooh, so what do you mean?
So for example, you've mentioned already a safety rail, or how should you zone things? What are the requirements? So
I suppose other than the layout, so usually you'd have maybe a vanity, a shower recess, or you'd have a bath with a shower over it, or you have a separate bath. You have all 4 items. So, for example, you have your shower recess, you have your bath unit, you have your vanity unit, and you have your toilet unit. If you can fit all that in, that's wonderful. You've got a great big space, and that's terrific. Sometimes you may have to compromise on those. For example, having your shower over the bath. Some of the other things to take into account is, where are your towel rails going to be? Do you want a heated towel rail? Or if the space doesn't allow it or your budget doesn't allow it, rather than a heated towel rail, you can actually have underfloor heating. And that makes a difference, because if you have a heated towel rail, you put your towels on it and it'll actually heat and dry the tiles depending on the amount of tile. When you have underfloor heating, you don't need a heated towel rail. It does effectively the same thing. So there are two elements that you may not be, well, everyone knows about towel rails, but there are two elements, here we have underfloor heating, and budget-wise, they're very cost-effective. And it might be a good way to actually heat the space without too much energy. So there's a couple of things. Your tiles, whether, like we said before, are they slip resistant when they're going into, especially the shower area, the wet area, or coming out of the shower area? So tiles, materials are very important. If you're looking at for your cabinets, for your vanity unit, for example, some people say, I want to bring in some timber. Well, that's great. So is the timber unit not going to have a lot of water sprayed on it from, sometimes we have what we call a wet area. So we have no glass panel to the shower, and we simply have a wet area where it's the water, while we're standing under the shower, can hit anything. That's because the space is so restricted. Feels great being in there. We can't put all the elements in there, so we've got a wet room. I cannot put timber cabinetry in a wet room, so you really have to think of that. Your toilet roll holders, do they go on the wall, or can you have a unit that simply is a little bit different and sits on the ground? Your storage, can you have some floating cabinetry with maybe floating shelving underneath? Roll up your towels and put them under there. Or can you have some recessed cabinetry into a wall, open shelving, and you can put your items there. So there's a number of things that you can incorporate, which is smart design. So you kind of, our I think role as a designer is to push the limits. What else can we do? What can we achieve? And most of the time we can come up with solutions, keeping within, our guidelines. We can come up with the solutions and it'll work well, look good, and so on and so forth. There's some of the things that I would incorporate or think of as an extra. Also, where you put your tapware. So, for example, you have a panel, you have a shower recess, you have a panel. I'm going to turn on the tap. I do not want to turn on the tap and just wet my arm or what. If I can avoid that, that would be great. So therefore, I will locate the mixer tap to a location which is a bit easier for me to get to without getting wet, but within the guidelines. Likewise to tapware or mixer taps to a bath. Can I bend down right over the bath to the tap which is to the back of the bath? That's going to be a bit uncomfortable. Can I bring that mixer to the side of the bath so I have the outlet where the water comes to the back of the bath, and I have the mixer to the side wall, so I just walk over, turn it on. I don't have to bend over. So they're little things that are just considered, well thought out, and work well for us.
Yes, my mum's old house, you had to walk fully into the shower to turn the tap on.
Yeah.
And it'd be cold initially, so
Yes.
you're like, oh, I don't want to get
exactly.
cold and wet at the same time.
Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah, and I saw a picture of just a hole in the glass so you could put your hand through and turn the tap on before going in, which I thought was such a great idea.
Yeah, it's novel.
Yeah. I mean, I think some of the ideas that you suggested are much better. But yeah, particularly if you, you don't need to change the temperature all the time. So having one that's not necessarily within reach of when you're out of the shower would be better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there anything that I've missed with my questions?
No. Nothing I can think of.
What's something you do in your own home to keep your bathroom organised?
Oh, you're talking to an obsessive person. Okay. My bathroom organised. I have containers for everything. So my bathroom was built in, I think, 2020, and the designer, as I said, I had to purchase from the plan, and the designer put indoors rather than drawers, which was okay. It's not the end of the world. I don't believe in ripping everything out for the sake of whatever, because it'll become landfill, so I make do. So I just got kind of really nice white plastic baskets that have where you can pick it up with your kind of handles on the side, and that's in my vanity unit. And in one I have all my makeup. In the next one I have my husband's all his doodads. He only needs one box, he doesn't need much. And then in the next one I have all my, bubble bath and all of that sort of stuff. So I organise it that way. And my drawers are organised in a similar way. In the morning, after we've used the bathroom, if I have the time, I just try and, just keep it a little bit clean and everything. More so, I'm very much a bathroom retreat person. This is my relaxed space. So I love sitting in the bathtub. It's a place where I just really just chill out. And I allow that ritual maybe once or twice a week, depending. So, yeah, it's basically not letting things go, because it doesn't work for me. And I'm someone who needs my environment to not have too much clutter or stuff around the place, because I'm not a clear thinker then. And it doesn't feel good. And plus, we have an office downstairs in the entry area. So I work and do everything in my home, which I think most of the population is doing now. And so my bathroom is the place where I just like it, feeling good. And sometimes I'll have nice smelling candles and all of that sort of thing in there.
I do love, relaxing in the bath.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I hate my bathroom.
Oh, no.
So I don't really do that.
Do something about that.
Unfortunately, I rent, so
That's okay.
I can't do... Well, or do you have any suggestions?
Look, I think bring in your favourites. Mm-hmm. What are the things that you really love? They might be little pot plants. Mm-hmm. Use your senses, your 5 senses. So, what smells nice, what feels nice, really fluffy towels. Maybe your sight, some colour and texture. So surround yourself with things that you really love, are practical, but they're the things that are about you and you enjoy. And play around with it. When it comes to, items that you can, soft furnishings and towels and, candles, these are things that you can move around. So you might pop it in a place and think, oh, I like it over there. That looks good. No, it doesn't. I hate it because it means I have to do this. So, play around with it a little bit. So even, if you're in a rental place, there are ways that you can create an atmosphere, or you can express yourself and say, no, these are the items that make me feel good. Therefore, I will pop them in these places.
That does make me think, I have a mismatch of towels because, I've just sort of collected whatever from my parents. Yeah. But I really like it when they all kind of have the same colour scheme.
Yeah.
And it just sort of, I do notice it when that happens.
Sure, do it. It's a feel good.
Yeah.
Plus it feels good when you dry yourself.
Yeah. Maybe I should get some new towels.
Yeah. And the old ones, what you can do, depending on what state they're in, what I do with mine is, of course, I go around cleaning things with it. Or because I'm planning to move, I'm thinking, I'm going to wrap everything in my old towels. And then the packing becomes easier. So there's always something you can do with it.
Yeah, my mum keeps old towels in her car, and she uses them if we have the dog in the car, or if you're moving dirty things, groceries.
Yep, lateral thinking, handy.
Yeah, she's very good at that. That was one of our questions from the audience. So that was good. So the next question is... How can we design safer bathrooms for elderly people, and especially minimising falling risks?
Okay, so it's what I spoke of before. So really, when you're designing for restrictive mobility and avoiding as much as possible, making it a safe place, avoiding making it an unsafe place. It has to be user-friendly. You have to think of, for an elderly person moving from one space to another, they may have some sort of assisted movement device or item, and that needs to move in there as well. So, for example, an open shower. So it's a panel. You simply walk in and you use that space. You can have a grab rail in there which has been well considered and is in the industry standards in terms of where they're going to be positioned, and there are guidelines for that. If there's a bath, which I don't come across too many elderly people who want or need their bath, mainly because getting in and getting out, the likelihood of an accident happening there is high. So, of course, if there is a bath, you will need good grab rails to suit in that area as well. You need the tapware. And this is something really important that when I have some of my clients who are a little bit older, and then I think, what's going to happen in the next 10 or 20 years? For example, arthritis. If I specify a tap or a mixer that can't be held properly in years to come, that is not good. I haven't considered that. So sometimes you can't grip as well. Or sometimes I've had clients who have had very sensitive fingers, and they go to open a door and they've got a knob and it feels really uncomfortable because it's very square or very, not sharp edges, but a very square edge, very linear edge, and that feels really uncomfortable for them. They're things that we just don't think of. So to really look at all of those items, and of course to ensure that you have tiles that have a really good grip. So their slip rating is exactly what it needs to be. So accessibility movement into one place to another. And even, for example, toilet suites, there are toilet suites for elderly that are just a little bit higher, so it's easier for them to move on and off, because that is a problem. As years go by, could be a problem.
I would have thought that having it lower would be better.
No, because as time goes on, various things happen to the body and it becomes kind of stiffer. So there might be movement restriction. And when you have to bend down further onto the toilet, you may not have the strength in your legs to push yourself up. So, of course, you have to hold on to something. It may be a grab rail, but having it a little bit taller, and there are toilets there to suit elderly people. If that's a need, there are toilets out there that actually accommodate that.
Well, I learned something. I mean, I've learned lots of new things.
Yeah,
but that's
good.
an unexpected. That's an unexpected one, I think.
I didn't know that one.
Yeah. Do you have any tips for kids?
Oh, yes. Children, it's all about the bath experience. Showers are okay, but no, children love their baths, so they love their bubble baths and all of that sort of stuff. So, for example, a freestanding bath may not be the idea. May not be the ideal because things fall all over the place and whatever else. Whereas what we call an inset bath, which is surrounded by a hob, may be more comfortable for the kiddies, for cleaning. Also for us to sit down, not sit down, usually we kneel down with our children and bent over. So that needs to be considered. If it's a certain height, it may not feel comfortable for ourselves. The kiddies need to jump in and jump out of the bath and everything else. Again, for kiddies also, more so, is the slip rating on the tiles.
I remember as a kid sliding in the bath and just getting water everywhere.
Yeah.
So I can imagine it would have been slip central.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Also, tapware. Mm-hmm. So there's various degrees in terms of heat. Mm-hmm. And so tapware can be installed and the selection can take into account that it's not as easy for a child to change the temperature on that tap. For if you happen to have turned around and that child decides, I'm going to play with the tap now, that really needs to be taken into account. So there's a certain cutting off in terms of hot water, mm-hmm. the temperature of the hot water. So there are all these things that are taken into account and can be easily incorporated. And actually the industry regs already have that incorporated into bathroom tapware and hot water and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I can definitely remember just as an adult just accidentally hitting the tap because it moves so easily.
Yes.
And, hot water comes gushing out.
Exactly.
Yeah, it can be dangerous.
Absolutely. Mm. Even the positioning of a water outlet, mm-hmm. so your tapware outlet, the faucet, it can be projecting too far out that a child getting into the bath is going to knock themselves on that, or any person is going to knock themselves out on that. Consider that. Think of it. If you can't have a bath that clears that a little bit, then you can actually get a water outlet that folds up against the wall. So you pull it out, the water goes into the bath, you push it back in, and it just folds up against the wall. Sometimes spaces are restricted, So you need to take that into account. They are out there and they're quite attractive. They're really lovely. They don't look weird or anything. And you can incorporate those ideas as well for safety and ease of use.
What can you do if you don't have a lot of money to spare?
Okay, save your money. I say that because I've actually come across that in the last few months. I have quite a variety of clients and age groups. So there's a real mix. And I've been noticing I have people in their late 20s, early 30s who've decided to engage in an interior designer for their bathroom and kitchen and whatever. And they've actually said to me, oh, look, I won't engage you until I've saved my money. Then I'll save my money, we'll know what it is that's going in, how much that's going to be, and then I'll save my money for that. So I only say that because I've experienced it a few times. I'd say about 3 times in the last 3 months. And I go, wow, that is cool. That is really logical.
Yeah.
So that's one way. If we don't have so much, if our budget is really tight, then I think if there are items in there that must be replaced, rather than thinking I'll rip the whole thing out, then think, no, what is the item in there that's causing so much discomfort? And if it's possible to take that item out and put in a new one without too many ramifications, then think of it that way. Don't think of the whole. Think of just one item. So it could be a vanity that just doesn't work for you. And think, oh, look, it's falling apart, it's doing this, it's doing that. There are vanities. You can go into some of the stores where you get all your bathware items, and they have, pre-made vanity units that fit the space that you have. So don't be overwhelmed and think of the whole lot. Just some of the things you need to take into account with that is that if something is taken out, more than likely the tiles are being taken out as well. And then you have to think of, okay, how am I going to deal with this?
I can see in my rental, they've taken out the vanity area and replaced it with one that's smaller. So on either side, there are no tiles.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I mean, it doesn't really affect functioning. It just looks ugly.
Yeah, so that it may not need tiles. It depends on, the area. Yeah. It also, if you're taking tiles out of, for example, a shower compartment, and also there's a shower compartment, and then there's areas around that shower compartment where there's most water can happen. So when you step out of a shower, all of that needs to be waterproofed, tanked. Once you've removed the tiles, the likelihood of affecting the waterproofing, the original waterproofing, is very high. So more than likely you've pierced it in some way. So have a think of the consequences of if you need to repair a certain area rather than the whole area, there may be consequences to it. So you need to think of those things, because from one price it becomes, of course, more than that. But if you prepare and say, okay, I can't do it now, unless it's, you're upstairs and you're in your bathroom's upstairs and you're in the kitchen downstairs and it's raining in your kitchen, then I would attend to it as soon as possible. And I've seen that a lot.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, if it can wait, then just, save up, take your time on it and think, I don't have to rip everything out. Let me just work on this particular item or area.
Does ergonomic design have to be minimalist?
Does it have to be?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't have to be. It can be whatever. Ergonomic design is simply about clearances and reaches. So it's about having certain dimensions open, or certain dimensions to where something is.
Okay.
And that you can move freely around that. So no, it doesn't have to be minimalist at all.
Okay, cool. So we'll head on to the open mic now. So you mentioned before that you wanted to talk about the psychology of colour. So what is that?
Wow. Okay, it's really interesting. So part of interior design, of course, is colour theory. So, for example, we do 1 year of colour theory in the course, which incorporates, the colour wheel and the theory of colour and how it's all been kind of put together, the formula for colours and how it all works. And then the second year we did the psychology of colour. And the reason I find it interesting is I'm quite well known in the industry and by clients and so forth for colour and being able to interpret what colours people are attracted to. And it is really, really important. So everybody sees colour completely differently. So you may have a colour here on the table, and I'll look at it and I'll describe it one way, and you'll look at it and you'll describe it another way because you see it differently. And that's okay, that's normal, no big deal. The psychology of colour is, I suppose, putting in that we all have experiences and memories via the senses that we keep in our bodies and we carry. And we all react or respond to colour differently. We see it differently, or we'll respond to it differently, or we will react to it differently. And there's a history to all that. It could be that as a child we had an experience of a fall in an area and the colour on the wall was green. So I may not like green because for some reason, I don't know why, I just don't like green. But it was that bad experience as a child.
I'm wondering if that's why I don't like pink.
I don't know. Maybe you were surrounded by pink.
Well, my school uniform was pink.
Oh, was it really?
So maybe
Wow.
that's why.
Oh, yeah. Could be.
Yeah.
Don't know. Yeah, it's really interesting because we all have colours that we're attracted to and colours that we just want to move away from. We just think, I don't want that in that area, or I don't want that around me. So it really impacts on the person and your living environment. So, for example, if I'm in a space and there's something that, a colour that for some reason feels uncomfortable, for whatever reason, I certainly won't want that in my space. And so colour really needs to be thought through. And that's why with clients, I actually, when we come to the tile selection, for example, there's a certain way that I do that. But I think it's mainly my social work counselling background. And it's really funny when I go into a couple of the tile stores, they leave us alone, we're just going to do, and they go, it's fascinating how you do that. And it's really, I just stand there with a client and I say, on this wall, is there any particular tile that you look at and you think, oh, I must have that, I love it. And so we work it that way. And then we put them all together, and by a process of elimination, because once you've put them all together, it's really interesting. You'll see either a pattern in terms of colour. It could be a grey. The tile is technically grey, but no, it has a green undertone or it has a blue undertone. It is warmer or it is cooler. So you see a pattern. The person is attracted to either warmer or cooler particular undertones to that, whatever it may be. It's interesting when you've got a couple. Usually they're completely, one goes one way and one goes the other. So it's like marriage counselling. You kind of have to bring it together. It's very important because you certainly don't want to put that item into their space, which may be a bathroom, and then the tiler's gone in, done the tiles, client goes in and goes, oh my God, I can't stand this. Like, that would be a big problem, and I have come across that. And it was a situation where it was quite sad actually for a number of reasons, but where a tile selection I had come in, requested to come in on this build by a builder who said, I don't know what to do anymore. We've got 2 bathrooms completely tiled and the client is coming in and crying. She's so upset. I thought, oh, okay, all right. I really like the builder. We're very good friends, and okay, I can do this. And when I got there, I could understand how much it irritated her, because there were 2 colours that just weren't connected, and it didn't connect to anybody in the household. No one liked them. It irritated them, and this is their bathroom retreat, their ensuite retreat. They wanted to relax, soothing. So we had to rip it all out, and we did a selection together in a tile gallery, and it was about what she and her husband and the kiddies were attracted to. So the bathroom had a bit of a colour splash because that's where the kiddies were. It was the colour that they were attracted to, and we did it to the back wall and the base of the shower, so it looked like water coming, kind of reflected water coming down. And then we did, a tile to the rest of the space that was complementary to that. And to the ensuite, it was softer tones, but all about the clients.
Do you know how they got into that situation in the first place?
It was advice given to them previously. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it wasn't really the client, but the advice had come from, rather than seeking the actual sample, and this is a big no-no, do not select colour on the internet. Just don't do that. Because it will never be the actual colour. So it was specified via that way, rather than contacting the store or emailing a sample order. Because once you bring those samples together, no matter what the material is, whether it be a tile, whether it be fabric, whatever, it'll be completely different to what you saw online. And then you will have a problem. Because if you've ordered your tiles and they've been laid and you went there on the day and you walk in and you think, oh my God, that's an expensive problem to have. So, yeah, I'll just slip that one in. Please, please, please order your samples. I don't care if it's timber flooring. It doesn't matter what it is. Order them in and put them together, and that's how you get a mood board. So when we do a mood board, or when we bring the colours together, we don't necessarily do mood boards at the beginning or anything. We do them towards the phase where we're looking at colours and materials. So we kind of know the style of the interior, and that's all been designed, and then we work on the colours and materials, and that's when we bring it all together, including the tapware, finish, colour, everything. And that's when you can sit there going, oh, that looks so lovely. It just, oh, it all works in, oh, it's yummy. I love it. Or you think, oh my God, that's terrible. Oh, I've got to take that out. And isn't that better than putting it all in and then thinking, whatever?
Exactly. Yeah. I'm a sewer myself. I always look at the samples. They're like, we can send you a box of samples of whatever color you want, but it's always like $10. And I'm like,
Yes.
do I want to spend $10?
Yes.
But I mean,
it's well worth it.
Yeah,
it's well worth it.
Particularly if you're putting two colors together.
Yeah.
You want to make
take
sure.
the next step.
Mm-hmm.
We've been locked away for so long. Go out and smell the flowers, breathe in the air and go into a tile showroom.
Yes.
And it's amazing. It's the most glorious experience. Sometimes, it can be overwhelming, but it's wonderful. You don't have to decide then and there, and they will give you samples. So go in and feel the textures. When you see the tiles in a larger format rather than a small sample, you can see whether the pattern has quite a bit of movement and detail into it. You can feel the texture. So it's wonderful when you have a tile. I always say to a client, I try to lead them into a tile, maybe because I can see what they're attracted to, and then I start saying, this texture is like stone. So imagine standing in the shower, the water coming down, and you're standing on the stone. But you don't have that experience unless you're in a tile store.
Yeah. Just
so different. And you don't have to pay for usually there's no fee for that. And it's just it's a great experience. Go out there and see what's going on in the world in real life.
Make a day of it. Go and get a coffee.
Absolutely. Take it all in. And you can actually find, for example, in Melbourne, we actually have strips of areas, like you'll go to Church Street, Richmond or Bridge Road, and you'll have, furniture stores and tile stores and, handle stores and, and you can just walk in from one to the other and lighting stores and enjoy them.
I did notice two paint stores next to each other the other day, and I was like, surely they're competing against each other.
Yeah, their colours are different though.
Okay.
So they vary a little bit, depends on the paint. So, they'll basically have a colour palette, but their tones and so forth do vary.
Okay.
So it's quite interesting. You might go into one paint store and think, oh, I love that colour, I've got to have that. I'll look for the other colours. Yeah, they're okay, I love those. And then you'll go into the next paint store and go, oh, I found the other colours to go with the colour that I have next door. Oh, yes, this is it. And bring it home. Tiles, everything included. Bring it home, look at it within your environment, your built environment. And I say to clients, take that home, form a relationship with it, see if you like it. If there's conflict there, let it go. So, because once you get it into your own environment, there's different light, and light really affects colour. So you might have more natural light as opposed to lighting in a showroom. It's usually fluorescent lighting or cool lighting or whatever, and that has an effect. So bring it home and have a look at it.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed in stores looking at makeup.
Yes.
It's so different in the store than outside.
Yes, it's a shocker. When I go to get face makeup, I'm walking outside and then the salesperson follows me. So I'm so sorry. I really need to see this in natural light.
Yeah.
I'll be yellow or pink or something, and that won't be good. So, yeah, very true. You need to see it in its natural environment.
Yeah. Anything else about colour that you want to touch on?
Can't think of anything else. No, not at this stage. I'm sure I'll think of 2,000 things when I walk away.
Of course. That's my whole life. I'm always like, oh, the next day I should have said that in the interview.
Absolutely. Yes.
So if people want to find out more about you, where should they go?
Okay, well, I do have a website. So it's www.outsideinside.com.au. Oh, I just had a bit of a block then.
Yes.
I do have an email address, but it's on the website, and you can actually have a look at the website. Don't be scared by all the colour. Remember, it's all about the individual people. And, you know, if people are attracted to all white interiors, that's okay. It doesn't matter. Whatever floats your boat. So that's my website, and that'll have all my details in there. And I do have an Instagram site, which is Outside Inside Building Elements.
Yes, and we'll have all of your information as well on the in the show notes, so people can find you there as well.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming on, Patricia.
Pleasure. Thank you so much. Lovely spending the time together, and yeah, the passion of interior design and bathrooms.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Room by Room, produced by the Home Organisation Science Labs, a division of LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. More episodes like this from across 10 life management perspectives can be found by searching LMSL on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, and any other podcasting apps available on your smart devices. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider rating, sharing, and subscribing to our channel, as it helps other people to find it so we can grow and continue to bring you quality resources. More of our work can be found on our website, ho.lmsl.net, where you can join our movement. I'm Gabriella Joustra, and thanks for tuning in.